Hello Starbearers, this is GeoStar7 here with another review. Today I wanted to talk to you about something that aired on both British and American TV recently, but was actually based on a well-known Japanese property. Now, I know it's not uncommon for Japanese series to be shown to Western audiences, especially animated ones. However, this is a series that a lot of anime and manga fans have been eagerly anticipating. Not just because of how long it took for this series to be made, but also because of the person who wrote the original story. This is my review of the animated TV adaptation of Uzumaki. So anyway, for those of you who don't know, Uzumaki is a Japanese horror series that was originally written and illustrated by Junji Ito. And if you aren't familiar with who Junji Ito is, he is one of, if not the most successful horror writers in all of Japan. He's written countless short stories and serials for numerous magazines. His work is very highly acclaimed with critics, not just in Japan but in America as well. And quite a lot of his work has actually been adapted into other forms of media as well, including video games, animated series, and even live-action movies. So he really is quite famous in his field of work. Some of his more notable stories would include The Whispering Woman, The Window Next Door, Town Without Streets, Slug Girl, and especially the Tomie series. In fact, Tomie is considered by a lot of people to be a true horror icon. She's basically to Japanese audiences what characters like Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees are to the West, really. So, in that regard, you could say that Junji Ito is like the Japanese equivalent to Stephen King. That's the best way that I could describe him. But going back to Uzumaki, this was originally a 20-chapter serial which Junji Ito wrote between 1998 and 1999, and it's one that many people consider to be his magnum opus. So, the story follows a high school girl named Kirie. She has a boyfriend named Suichi, and she lives with her family in a town called Kurozucho. It seems like any other small town at first, but it's quickly made clear that the whole town is under a curse. And the cause of this curse is actually spirals. In fact, the word Uzumaki actually translates as spiral. Now, you might be wondering, well, what's scary about a spiral? I mean, it's just a line that goes around and around and around. What's scary about that? And, admittedly, if you were to hear the concept like a town falls under a curse and the cause of the curse is spirals, you might think it would be a little bit hokey. But, well, here's the thing. Junji Ito, when he wrote this story, he wanted to explore what could be scary about spirals. Because if you think about it, a spiral is a very unique shape. Like, it constantly wraps in on itself over and over and over and over, and there's almost no end to it. Like, if you were to get caught up in one of those things, it would be very difficult to get out again or pull away. Like, it has that power to sort of draw you into the center. Plus, there's a lot of things that actually have spirals that we don't even realize. I mean, there's spiral staircases, there's twisters, there's whirlpools. Your hair can curl into a spiral. Some animals actually have mating habits that involve spirals. This series asks us, what if it was all connected in some way? What if, maybe, there was something manifesting these spirals and causing them to have an influence on people? And that's what happens in Kurozucho. Spirals start to appear everywhere and people just start getting drawn in by them. Not exactly in a hypnotic sense, but they begin to affect people psychologically. Like, some people go crazy and obsess over the pattern, others become terrified at the mere sight of it, and some people actually become infected by spirals to the point of being turned into monsters. Like, there's a girl who has a scar on her forehead that starts twisting into a spiral, and then it starts to literally consume her from the inside out. There are some people whose bodies start contorting into the shapes of spirals. There's people as well who start turning into giant snails because snails have spirals on their shells. And there's even one boy who becomes a living Jack-in-the-Box. Like, the whole lower half of his body is just this spiral spring. And that's not even mentioning some of the other gruesome imagery that we see. Like, there are people who get burned alive in this series. There's a woman who cuts off her fingertips and stabs her ears because there's spirals in them. There's pregnant women who become blood-craving zombies. It's, like I say, it's pretty disturbing stuff. Like, there is almost nothing that this series won't show in order to freak out its audience. Seriously, if you've honestly never seen anything by Junji Ito, if you've never experienced his work in any way whatsoever, I would say that Uzumaki is a very good introduction to his style of writing and just what he presents in his stories. So how exactly does Uzumaki get translated onto the small screen? Well, the first thing you should know is that this isn't the first time that Junji Ito's work has been adapted into animation. In fact, it's not even the first time that Uzumaki itself has been adapted. There was a live-action film back in the year 2000, but just looking at it and some of the effects that it has, it's really not the best way to present the story, because here's my thing with live action. I feel like there's only so much that you can achieve with real people and CGI effects. I mean, best case scenario, they can end up looking much better than anything a drawing can show, but in the worst cases, they try to use technology to recreate something that it's just not capable of doing. And then not only does it not look good, but it looks like a desperate attempt. It looks, to be perfectly honest, it almost looks desperately cheap and lackluster when they try to, use that technology for something that it just can't pull off, really. And so like I said, I've seen clips of that Uzumaki live action movie, and yeah, like I said, with the effects they use, it just really is not convincing. So yeah, with some of the more elaborate and gruesome imagery that you get in Uzumaki, it really is something that can only be properly pulled off with animation, which just goes to show you that animation is an art form and it's not a genre. As for the animated adaptations there have been, I've got to admit, they have done a good job of recreating the manga style for their animation, I will say. Like, they even go the extra mile by using things like paler colours. They keep everything two-dimensional, and sometimes they even use lines for shading rather than actual shadows, just to sort of stay true to the limitations of a manga and to actually sort of make it look a bit more like it's a drawing, like that's coming from the illustrations of Junji Ito. However, what makes Uzumaki stand out is that it actually goes one step further with the manga concept, and that is, this entire series is presented in black and white. So what we see is quite literally the pages of the manga coming to life on screen. The characters and settings look exactly the same as they do in the illustrations, and there is nothing added that detracts from the original designs. They want to stay as faithful to the original manga as possible. Maybe you could argue that some scenes would have benefited from being in colour, especially some of the more gruesome ones that have a lot of blood. Like, it would definitely look a lot more disturbing if you could see red instead of black, and there's other things as well. But honestly, with the way this story is animated, along with the incredible voice acting and the creepy music, all of those things added in, it more than makes up for the lack of colour, and it really does make it a very unsettling experience. Not only that, but I feel that the 2D animation doesn't hold back the series' quality in any way. They're actually able to show a lot of depth in many of the scenes. Like, for instance, you can easily tell what's in the foreground and what's in the background just based on how dark or light the shading of the lines are. Like, nothing looks flat or like it's merging together. They also do use CGI on top of the 2D animation sometimes. However, they actually use it very sparingly. I think they only really use it for effects like wind or smoke. Everything else is just kept true to the 2D style of it. I think they even animate the water in 2D animation. Like I say, they want to stay true to the style of the manga, and they're only adding in these little bits of CGI where it's necessary. Like, they don't want it to overshadow the style of what they're going for. So yeah, I really do have to respect the decision to not only make this a 2D animation, but to also do it in black and white as well, because we still see a lot of 2D animated series nowadays, but just how many of them are kept in black and white and use that lack of colour as a style in order to bring out the potential of the series, really. Like, I really do respect them for that. Like you can clearly tell, like, they wanted to really just have as much respect as they could for the original designs and Junji Ito's work, and really wanted to present these characters and the settings exactly how he designed them. That said, though, there is something about the story's presentation which does differ from the manga, and that's actually to do with the pacing. You see, one thing I haven't mentioned yet is that although I am calling this a series, it's actually only a mini-series. It's only 4 episodes long. Going in knowing how short it was, I figured that one of two things would happen. Either they wouldn't adapt the whole series and they would end up leaving it off like halfway finished or something, or the other option would be they would increase the pacing so that they could get through the story much quicker and actually get to the end of it in just 4 episodes. It did end up being the latter, but I have to say, there was never a moment where I felt like the story was being rushed. Let me explain. So, with the manga, it's very easy to distinguish the chapters that it has. Each chapter, I think, focuses on either one particular victim of the spiral, or one particular group of people, or a particular set of events that happen somewhere, like at a hospital, at a school, or at someone's home. Each one does progress the overall plot, but they mostly feel like they're self-contained and they don't really have a whole lot to do with one another, other than the curse, of course. Like each chapter is its own thing, and you can easily tell like where one ends and one begins without even being given like any indication of when that happens. With the mini-series, however, they managed to include several chapters in each episode, one after another. And the way they did that was by removing some of the more minor scenes that would, drag out the chapter a little bit more in manga form. And they would also make the transitions between the chapters feel very, very seamless. Like you could easily just watch this and assume like it was flowing straight into the next part of the story and not into another chapter with how they present it. And they actually even rearrange some of the events as well, so that more than one chapter can happen simultaneously. Sometimes they even give little hints about what's coming in the next episode as well. Like, they might introduce a certain character and give us a little bit of an idea of who they are, and then in the next episode, we see like how they're affected by the spiral and how that ultimately has, how it ultimately causes them to go insane or turn into a monster, or just really the whole effect that it has on them. Of course, it's never nice when you have to cut content like for the sake of pacing, like especially with this series. I know for a fact that not only were there like scenes that were removed, but there were even whole chapters that were actually not included in the miniseries, like including I think one lost chapter that I think a lot of people will be disappointed wasn't adapted for the series as a whole. But Junji Ito himself has gone on record to say like he didn't really mind how his story was being changed and presented for the TV version. He actually said that given the limited number of episodes that the studio had, he was very impressed with how they were able to restructure his story in order to fit those 4 episodes. Like, he didn't have any problem with how they were presenting his work. I'd say probably the only real downside for us as an audience is that because of this fast pacing, other than Kirie, Suichi and their families, we don't really have much of a chance to like emotionally invest in the characters, or we don't really get a chance to know them properly. In most cases, we're just introduced to people like Suichi's father, or Kirie's cousin, or a reporter. They're introduced in one episode, and then they get axed off before the same episode even finished. Like, they're introduced in one episode, and then in that same episode they're gone. Like, they're killed off. Now, you could say that is a criticism, but the thing is, character development was never a main priority in any of Junji Ito's work. Because, keep in mind, he usually wrote short stories, and so he knew that he didn't have much time to build anything up with them. Like, even with his serials, he knew that his audience would be coming in to just see what sort of crazy or creepy scenarios that he'd come up with for the story. Like, that's really what they came to see. So typically he would just introduce the characters, give us the bare minimum of who they are, what sort of situations they were in, and then immediately get into the disturbing aspects of the story. Because, if your characters are going to be axed off, if they are going to befall terrible fates, like, why spend too long focusing on things about them that ultimately won't matter in the end? So, overall, I'd have to say that watching Uzumaki the animated series was definitely an experience for me. I'm not sure if I would call it a pleasant experience, because, I was creeped out quite a lot by what I was seeing on screen. And I've seen quite a few horror stories recently, but this is one of the few times where I was genuinely scared by what I was seeing on screen. Like, episode 3 in particular was really creepy. Like, Kirie was in hospital, and while she was there, like, there were these blood-craving monsters roaming the halls. Like, she was caught up in the building. She couldn't leave. They started coming after her, and even Kirie's own cousin started to turn on her. And like, you genuinely felt concerned for her well-being. It really did feel like a scary situation. And on top of that, like, episode 3 is when the spiral curse really starts to take effect. Like, you see just how devastating and destructive it can be, like the true extent of madness it can indulge in people, and yeah, it really is a big climax. I'd say episode 3 really is the highlight of the series for me. I kind of feel like maybe episode 4 did fall flat just a little bit, like, you know, the ending of it all. And I'm not really sure why, because, you know, the ending that they have is pretty much exactly the same ending as what we see in the manga version. Like it's exactly the same in that respect, but I don't know, it didn't like invoke a sense of hopelessness or desperation or anything that I felt when reading the manga. Like I don't know, and it's not because I knew what was coming, but like I don't know, there was just something about its presentation that didn't like invoke the same emotions for me the way the manga did. Also, I am sure that this series will have its critics and its detractors, like, because it's not in colour, it is very short, it doesn't adapt literally everything from the manga. I've seen that some people were even criticising that the animation quality dropped a little bit after episode 1, like maybe it wasn't as detailed as it was presented like in the manga, like it started to get a little bit smoother and everything. But, you know, as someone who did read the original story and the original illustrations and everything, I definitely feel like this animated series was worth my time to go and check out. And, you know, I honestly hope that we get to see more of this on like Freeview TV, because, you know, most anime series nowadays, they usually just put on streaming services like Netflix or Crunchyroll, and you know, that's fine and everything, but like not everyone has access to those, and it can be very easy for those things to just get lost in the shovel because of the sheer amount of content on those streaming services. With Uzumaki, though, it was actually broadcast on Adult Swim in both the United States and Canada, and over here in the UK, it actually premiered on Channel 4 of all places. So, you know, clearly they had enough faith in this animated series that they thought by putting it on TV that it would actually draw in TV ratings. And another thing is that I was very surprised to see that they actually went through the trouble of doing an English dub of this series as well. Like, you know, when I went to see it on Channel 4, like I was expecting for it to just have the Japanese language and just be reading English subtitles, because, you know, that is the typical thing that they do, but no, they actually went through the trouble of getting an English voice cast and actually dubbing it into English, which I was really appreciative of. It really surprised me because like I said, not every anime adaptation does get an English dub. Most of the time it is just subtitles. It has to be something very special to like receive an English dub, and like I say, Channel 4 and Adult Swim, they clearly thought that this series would be successful and that it would produce ratings for them, and like I said, I just really hope we get to see more content like this on channels like that, because, you know, I would definitely be up to seeing it as well. So anyway, that's pretty much all that I have to say for this review of Uzumaki. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did enjoy this video, leave a like, share and subscribe, and comment down below, and check out some of the other videos on my channel. And yeah, I'll hopefully see you in the next video that I do. So until next time, stay tuned.
Viewer beware, you're in for a